Renowned cardiologist Pim van Lommel has written a book based on his interviews with hundreds of heart patients at his hospital who had all clinically died of cardiac arrest before being resuscitated. A significant percentage of these patients reported a near-death experience. The evidence Dr. van Lommel has gathered supports the validity of the near-death experience and suggests that scientists should rethink their theories on the nature of human consciousness. Dr. van Lommel offers a new paradigm for the 21st century that could change the way we view death and how we live our lives. For those of us who don't understand the concept of non-locality, could you explain that to us?
Yeah, so non-locality is a dimension where there is no time and no space. So no distance. So everything is there. When you have a life review, you have access to all information you had during your whole life. Each thought, each word, each act you did or had is kept with the effect on others. But you also can have a flash forward, a preview of things for the future. So in this dimension, the past, the present, and future is available. And everything is connected. It's entangled, it's interconnected. So there's, it's an analogy to quantum physics, which is non-local, is connected without time and without space.
I think in some of the reports that you cite, people feel that when they have this near-death experience, they've returned home, and that this home that they report, this expanded reality, is the same place that they came from. And that this home, this expanded reality, is real, and the life they just left is a dream. So can you expand on that?
Yeah, well, you're right. People tell me that this was more real than ever, but they experienced it during their life.
So during a period of so-called unconsciousness, what they experienced was more real?
More real than ever. And
that must have been shocking to you when you first heard that.
It was shocking for the patients who experienced it. And I felt this shocking experience. So they cannot believe it themselves. I know some physicians who had a near-death experience, and they told me, what happened to me now, I've always told everybody, this is impossible, and now it happened to me. So it doesn't fit in our concepts. It doesn't fit in our materialistic concepts we have in science. So, but you're right, they tell us, I felt home. It's where I come from. This is more real than ever.
Your research into the near-death experience shows conclusively that consciousness is non-local, and as you have said, this changes everything. The old materialistic paradigm is broken, the egoic structure is shattered, and we do not yet have a new paradigm, and we need a new language and a new perspective to the universe. So what is your idea of this new paradigm?
Well, I think the paradigm is that we have to change science, because science up till now is just what you can measure is real, and what you cannot measure is not there. And then we have the problem of consciousness. We cannot measure consciousness. We cannot prove the content of consciousness. The science should change into accepting also the subjective aspects of mankind. So we have to include subjective experience as well, and not only objective criteria.
And scientists, I think, have specifically excluded the subjective.
Exactly, because you cannot prove it. And
you cannot prove your own experience?
You cannot prove subjective experience. Right. People tell about it, but scientists want to prove it. And that's the long-term study we did is a kind of objective criteria, because of the transformation is the objective aspect of a subjective experience. And we could prove that only the patient with a near-death experience changed significantly, different from the people without, but who survived a cardiac arrest as well.
But the patients who survived a cardiac arrest also changed, but not as much as the...
Different.
Different.
Different. Not as much, but different. Let's say the fear of death disappears only with patients with a near-death experience. The new life inside especially specifically changes for some aspects in people with NE. And the third aspect, the enhanced intuitive sensibility, only changes in people with near-death experience. The interest in spirituality is specific for people with an NE.
Dr. Van Lommel, I've asked you before how this changes your life, but you must feel, concerning what you just told me, you must feel very passionate about your findings.
Yes, I'm touched by it. Because it changed me, but it changed my worldview. So when we published our study, 10-year study in The Lancet in 2001, I had so many responses from throughout the world that at that moment I decided to stop my work as a clinical cardiologist.
Right.
At the age of 60, to do this, to study the mind-brain relationship and to write papers about it, to lecture all over the world, and now at last to write a book.
So what is essential? What needs to be done to change the idea of materialistically oriented scientists that consciousness is non-local? Because when you do change this orientation, that consciousness is non-local, as you said, it changes everything. So what needs to be done?
Well, first, that we have to break the taboo about near-death experiences.
The taboo?
Because people who have a near-death experience are silent. When they try to share their experience with others, it's not accepted by doctors, by nurses, by family members, by partners. More than 50% have a divorce because they change. So we first have to change that we accept the near-death experience in society. 9 million people in the United States have had a near-death experience, but they are silent. Secondly is that we have to change the scientists as well, to give them the information about the near-death experiences and about the conclusions about the mind-brain relationship. And this is why I've written articles, I've written a book, and I lecture also in universities and hospitals and for psychologists, for medical schools, for philosophy schools. So that's the other aspect that, and in Holland now, the paradigm is changing already. I get more and more, receive more and more invitations to lecture for scientific groups.
But you realize there must be a stigma against this, because if doctors come to the point of view that you're proposing, I imagine there might be a fear of a loss of credibility, and so there's a certain stubbornness about accepting these new ideas.
Yeah, I can understand why there is so many reluctance to accept it, because
when you first heard about it, you were reluctant to accept it yourself. Many years ago.
Yes, because it was new for me, but it was not really reluctance, because I was so curious about it. So I accepted it. But it was new for me because it didn't fit with what I had learned in a medical school. But people, scientists, are indeed reluctant because they fear, they're frightened that they lose their ground of their science. They lose the ground of the position, they lose the research money. So I can understand the reluctance, and I also know that the private opinion can sometimes be different from the official opinions they have as a professor.
Right. Well, Dr. Van Lommel, your research has been very inspiring, and perhaps your book will inspire people to open up a bit. I noticed that just yesterday Clint Eastwood came out with a movie, The Hereafter, and so there's more public...
What's it called, The Hereafter?
Hereafter.
Okay,
yeah.
I don't know.
You haven't heard of it?
No.
I saw it yesterday. It's a good movie.
Okay.
Yeah, and it explores near-death experience and the psychic phenomena that comes along with it, and I think a very straightforward and clear way. It's a good movie.
It's objective. It's
objective.
Without prejudice, etc. Okay. It's from Hollywood, or what is it?
It's from Hollywood, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
The Hereafter. Okay.
Hereafter. Yeah.
Okay. I didn't know.
So you can see things are changing at this very moment, in the past 24 hours.
And that's what I mean, that the general public will accept it more easily than scientists. There's also we know that about 50 to 60% of people in the United States believe in some form of afterlife. And about the combination of spirituality and belief in afterlife is perhaps even more. But the 200 scientists from the Academy of Science in the United States, only 7% is religious or spiritual, and 93 don't believe anything at all. Mm-hmm. And your opinion also in science is also made by your private opinion about what is possible, private opinion about belief, about religion, about spirituality. And these 200 scientists have the positions in scientific journals, etc. So it's hard to get this kind of subjects into the mainstream science.
I know there are a few people who are actually evangelical atheists. For some of these people, they stress evolution as proof that spirituality is a myth. But okay, there may be evolution, but that does not take into account the matter of consciousness, which frankly baffles many of these evangelical atheists. So, in your own mind, how do you reconcile consciousness as being non-local with evolution? How did consciousness come to be something that is registered by the brain as a TV receiver, as you implied?
Yeah. I think because I've changed the concept. Where is non-local consciousness? It's everywhere. It has always been. And for me, consciousness is fundamental in the universe. And everything comes from this non-local consciousness. So all the material aspects we see, we perceive and see and construct because of our consciousness. So consciousness is primary, fundamental. And matter will change, like we talked about in neuroplasticity. Your brain function and structure changes because of changes in consciousness. So evolution is a change in the function of a person, or change of people, because of changes in consciousness.
Mm-hmm. Okay. There is a quantum view that it's called downward causation. Upward causation is evolution. From atoms we get molecules to cells to body to brain, and consciousness is an epiphenomenon of brain, an accident essentially. But the opposite view is downward causation, where consciousness is primary and infusing the universe, as you say, and this consciousness is actually the source of a creation of matter. Would you comment on that?
I agree.
Oh.
Yes, the second option, I agree. Because that's what I told you. Consciousness is primary. Consciousness is fundamental in the universe. And everything originates from consciousness.
And that is a radical view from what we've been used to.
Yes, but I'm not alone in this.
I know. But even though it's a radical view, a new view, it has existed for thousands of years.
Yes, nothing is new. I also have written a chapter in my book, there's nothing new under the sun. Let's say we can come in contact because of the people within the death experience, with a wisdom that has been known for thousands of years in Eastern countries, but also in Egypt, by Plato, by the Kabbalah, it's Hinduism, Buddhism, Taoism, what we call primitive people, primitive cultures. They have known this for always. There's nothing new. But because of the Western science of the last 2 centuries, it has been lost and not accepted anymore.
How did this happen? How did it become lost? What precipitated a break with this ancient knowledge?
Well, it was Newton with his physics, and Descartes with the difference between body and the brain, and the body and the spirit, or the whatever. So the consciousness. So they said there are 2 different things. So we can just study the physical aspects of a human being, but not consciousness. So consciousness, get out.
Yeah. I think that in psychiatry, if a patient reported a near-death experience, that would not fit into the paradigm of psychiatric knowledge, and that person might be considered maybe insane or a little bit mentally unstable, and the course of the treatment in that psychiatry would be to disabuse the person of these mistaken notions. So it is really disturbing to me that this paradigm that has been accepted for so long has been used to actually prohibit a person's full potential and to, what is the word, to marginalize him to society. I really find that
Western society.
To Western society.
That's when you have a near-death experience in India, everybody will give the congratulations that they're happy for you that you had a near-death experience. But in the Western community, it's not accepted because it's impossible. So, and I also know people
it's perceived as being impossible.
Exactly. And I know some people with a near-death experience who were just put in isolation by his psychiatrist because he's just kept on talking about this experience and it was not accepted.
I find that shocking.
It is shocking. It is shocking.
And it has to change. Because these experiences that make people more loving, more accepting, more curious about the world, less egocentric, a psychiatrist who is supposed to be promoting mental health is actually trying to prevent mental health.
It's ignorance. And sometimes I think it's willful ignorance.
And willful ignorance is about as bad as you can get.
Oh yeah, I think so. It's a lot of prejudice. Yeah. And I think when we are open for the changes of people with their death experience, we change the way we live, and everybody can change the way we live. If you change your consciousness.
Dr. Van Lommel, IANS, the International Association for Near-Death Studies, some years ago, set out to prove the NDE, or non-locality, by using the methods of the materialists. But this has limited use. But if you change your perspective to non-locality, you come from that spiritual place, but you alienate the materialists. So what is the best approach for this?
The best approach is that you change your physics. We have to change the old-fashioned Newtonian physics into quantum physics. And in quantum physics, first of all, consciousness is primary. Secondly, we know the concept of non-locality in quantum physics, which has been proven. There's a connection without time, without distance. Two particles are connected instantaneously. There's an interconnectedness, and this is non-local. And this is exactly what people tell us in their near-death experience. So when you accept quantum physics, you can accept the non-local aspects of consciousness as well.
If non-locality becomes the new paradigm, how do you imagine that the world will change?
Well, I think the most important thing is when we realize that there is non-local connection, that we are connected, that we are connected as human beings. Everybody is connected. So when you start wars or aggression towards others, you do it to yourself as well. When you treat the planet Earth as we do now, you treat yourself as bad. So when you know that everything is connected, you change the way you treat others, and you change the way you treat the planet.
And we can't ask for anything better than that.
Yes. But we have to think of the future where children and grandchildren will have to live and survive. And they won't survive if we go on like this.
Dr. Van Lommel, I'd like to thank you very much for your comments today.
You're welcome.